Another point about this relationship between the UK and the US, which is that there are 1 million Brits who are employed by American companies and 1 million Americans who are employed by British companies. Even somewhere as far away as Hawaii has 3,000 people employed by British companies. And that business relationship between the two, you mentioned the trade deal that we want to sign with them post-Brexit. That is a very, very big opportunity for us, and President Trump is a champion of the view that there are great opportunities for Britain post-Brexit.
Yeah.
And I just make one point, for all the disagreements that you've been talking about, America under President Trump has got double the GDP growth that we have, and he's done that through some big business cuts in tax, and we could look at that.
And if we were to have a trade deal, Matt Hancock, your rival for the Conservative leadership, the Prime Ministership, said yesterday the NHS will not be on the table in any future trade talks. Is that your view too?
Yes, and Matt is absolutely right. I can't conceive of any future Prime Minister for any party ever agreeing that we would allow NHS procurement to be part of trade talks, because in the NHS as a publicly run, publicly owned institution is part of our DNA. Now, that's not to say that, pharmaceutical products, drugs, those kinds of things which are freely traded between countries couldn't be discussed. But the ownership of the NHS and of NHS services, I can't imagine that ever being part of a trade discussion.
In those circumstances, as has been made very clear by American officials, and you know how the Senate works and the ratification of these deals, it just wouldn't happen. I mean, it does suggest, doesn't it, that a trade deal between us and the United States, to put it mildly, is quite a long way off.
I think we could get one very quickly, because
but how if we say no to things that American politicians will feel immensely and almost neuralgically keen on because they're funded by these companies?
Well, we have things that are our red lines, and they have things that are their red lines, and that's completely normal in any trade negotiation. But what you have with President Trump, and I can say this because, I've only been Foreign Secretary for just under a year, but every single meeting I've had with either him or American officials, almost the first item on the agenda is how enthusiastic they are to do a trade deal and do one quickly. And you don't get that enthusiasm very often when it comes to trade deals. They are very, very keen to do one, and I think, therefore, we would find that there was wind in the sails when it came to the moment of us wanting to do that.
No deal or deal. You've been criticised by some, indeed, someone who was supporting you and isn't anymore, Crispin Blunt, a Conservative backbencher, for being unclear about a plan B. In other words, if you couldn't get a new deal with the European Union and you were Prime Minister, would you or would you not pull us out without a deal on October the 31st?
Well, my position on this hasn't changed at all. I've always said that in the end, if the only way to leave the European Union, to deliver on the result of the referendum, was to leave without a deal, then I would do that. But I would do so very much as a last resort, with a heavy heart, because of the risks to businesses and the risks to the union. And
right, but you would do it, and you would do it on October the 31st.
I would be prepared to do it in extremis, but I wouldn't do it if there was a prospect of a better deal. And I think there is a prospect of a better deal, and I think it's possible to get one before October the 31st, although I don't pretend it's going to be easy, but I think it's possible. Why do I say that? As someone who's done a lot of negotiations over my life, because I think there is a deal there that is in both sides' interests to do. It will have to be a better deal than the deal we have on the table. It would have to deal with concerns that Parliament quite understandably has about the backstop. And I think the question on people's minds is who is the next Conservative leader, the next Prime Minister, who is most likely to be able to negotiate that deal, because that is the way that we avoid all those uncomfortable choices.
Jeremy.